Hey, I'm Alex. This is Start DIY. Today we're going to start with the simplest tool as an introduction. We're going to cover tape measures. Everyone knows how you use a tape measure, but at some point everyone had to learn how to use a tape measure. So that's what we're doing today. This probably isn't for you, but if it is, keep watching. Alright, tape measures come in lots of different styles. I have three of my favorite ones here. This is my everyday tape measure. It's a 16-foot, 5-meter tape measure. I like it because it's compact and rarely do I need to measure anything longer than 16 foot. When I do, I go for a 25-footer. I like them with metric, but I do use feet and inches too. When I build cabinetry, I'll use feet and inches. When I'm framing, I'll use feet and inches. When I'm tiling, definitely metric. It doesn't matter what you use. It's whatever works for you. I mean, I grew up in the UK, so actually I grew up in the UK in the 80s, so I use metric. Now my parents, feet and inches, but then they convert, and you don't need to know both, but it helps to at least have a grounding. Basic things, 1 meter is 3 foot 3. 3 meters is 10 foot. That's kind of, it's enough to give you perspective on things. All right, a couple of features on the tape measure. When you pull it out, it's going to give you your length there. See, this one is ancient. It's nice because it clips onto stuff. So if you need to measure, say, something outside, you can clip it on, walk away, and just drag it out. 25-foot tape measure. It's kind of a standard 25 feet. The other thing, you got a belt clip. I clip this on my pocket. When I'm working, it's always there. Now, you may be able to make this out. You may be able to make it out, but it gives you the length of the tape measure's body. So we can pop our tape measure down here. We can extend it out. So our measurement here is, we'll keep the numbers simple. It doesn't matter for this example. We've got 8 inches plus 2 5/8, so we've got 10 and 5/8 between these. To do this the other way, you'd be making a bit of a guess. The other thing that can prove a little confusing is, why does that move? It's not something everyone knows, but when you see the reason for it, you'll understand. Okay, we're going to measure this here. So we're going to hook the end on, and that's going to hold in place. And obviously this is stretched out. So we measured this piece, it's 329 mil. Now, let's pretend it was a button up to a wall. Now we push our tape measure in there, and this is adjusted. And again, we get the same measurement. So the amount of movement in this is exactly the same as its thickness. And that's what that does. Next thing you know is marking. Your accuracy comes down to the thickness of the pen you use, which sounds silly, but it makes sense. So let's just say we want to mark, we'll mark 3 inches. So it's a 3-inch mark. We're just using a nice sharp pencil. Alright, I'll grab a Sharpie here. I love a pink Sharpie because on building materials it's a really good color for showing up. If you're working on almost any color you can write on in pink. You see our lines, the thicknesses are so different. So because a finer point is a lot easier to see, we need to cut here. But when you transfer for a cut, you need to remember which side's the waste. There's lots of different ways of marking. My favorite works for me. I'll mark my 3 inches, and then I'll just do a little X. And the secret is, when your blade comes through, you want your blade to be on the outside of your mark. So you're not cutting through your mark. You can see how this is, obviously, that's a 3 mil, 1/8 of an inch line. If your blade comes through here, your piece is going to be down to this size. So in our 3-inch example, we're gonna lose an eighth of an inch pretty much because our line was so thick. So we'll just do our Sharpie mark again. You can mark with markers, it's fine. Just remember that you want to come through with your blade up to the side of your mark. And that's where it becomes a pain that you use a Sharpie, because that will now be on your finished piece. Most of the time you can wipe it off, but not always. So I like marking with a pencil. When I'm getting more accurate, I'll mark with a 0.3mm pen. When I want to be super accurate, I'll mark with a blade. That's more when I'm doing joinery and, you know, cabinetry. That's when you need to be exactly the size you want. So to do that, I'll line up my blade with the mark on my tape measure. I'll quite often come in with a square after that. And at that point, my line is so small that I'm going to hit it exactly. And say, this is my waist side. So when my blade comes through on my saw, I want my blade to be sitting in this space here. And then that's removed, and my piece will be exactly that length. Now the other thing about tape measures is it doesn't matter what tape you use. It doesn't really matter how much money you spend on your tape measure. Just always use the same tape measure. There can be micro variances in the size of these things. Okay, that is 303. That's 302.5. So small differences. If we were measuring up to 5 meters, 6 feet long, that difference might affect things. Say, find a tape measure you like, just keep using it. And then if you measure something in one location and you're then marking with that same tape measure, you're going to be right. It doesn't matter what the true absolute measurement is. It's just as long as you can replicate it. That's the important thing. Hopefully you learned something from this video, and please subscribe because we're going to be covering a lot of simple tools and a lot of simple tricks.